Well, it's time for the final SPL weekly recap of Phase 1 with Finch and Dolson. Remember, we write these scripts for each other and then read them for the very first time right here and now, hopefully to hilarious results, but, I won't guarantee that one. So it's time for the last weekend of the phase. All 8 teams in action one final time. And for a couple teams, this weekend had playoff hopes written on it. E-United versus the Knights was no exception. E-United needs to win and hope for Renegades to lose on Sunday in order to move on to Phase 1 playoffs. Destiny is in their hands. Well, E-United fans were left more disappointed than chair fans around the world when Dolson was not on the desk to read a chair ad this weekend. That's right, the rest of us are just cheap imitations. It's on to Phase 2 for E-United, and it's on to the tournament for the Knights, fresh off of a 2-0 win. But there's plenty of drama to be had, and Game 1 extends to nearly the 40-minute mark. This set is destined to be back and forth, like I am destined to settle down with a certain witch in the woods one day. Me and Baba Yaga, we're going to make a great pair, I think. One of those things is not to be after the Knights are able to work through Paul in the mid lane and Cubo in the jungle in both games this set. The writing was on the wall in Game 1 after a double-kill first blood rotation from Paul gets the game started off right. Once again, Herwin attempts to throw off his opponents, literally picking the Giannis in Game 1, and the heartthrob of a generation, Baba Yaga, for Game 2, neither of which seemed to work out. It actually appears that most of the fight United had in them was used up in Game 1. Game 2 nearly hits 30 minutes, but more out of slow, calculated play from the Knights than anything else. There are no bad games for the United mid laner in this set, including Game 2 being the main reason, alongside Scream, that United have a chance to come back. But once you look at what Paul was able to do in conjunction with Cubo Fred, the gap was wide in Game 2 in particular. 8-0-8 Paul, 4-2-9 Cubo, enough said. We'll see Unite in Phase 2, and we'll see Dolson right now.
Yeah, you will see me right now, and I'm going to be talking to you about Ghost and SSG. A big match on paper, but this one was scarred a bit by Captain Twig's suspension, and it was the final match of the day on Saturday. SSG came in as the heavy favorites over Ghost and played like it in this set. They dominated games 1 and 3, but Ghost surprised everyone with a Game 2 win. Despite the cloud hanging over the set, it ended up being an exciting showcase nonetheless for our 2 strongest playoff teams. It seemed clear in Game 1 that Ghost wanted to try and fight around the solo lane, but SSG beat them at their own game. Bullying Fine OK early and often, it was an impressive bounce back by Ghost in Game 2, with PBM, Sam, and Fine OK having one of their best performances of the split. They camped Nika and Cheerio early on into the game, even bringing s'mores and telling scary stories, hash-slinging slasher style, and won off that insurmountable lead. Then in the final game, SSG took the gloves off. Relentless, relentless, relentless were the SSG boys, looking for fights and action anywhere they could find it. Dardez's Aphrodite damage was amplified by being linked to 2 aggressive warriors in the early game, and Ghost eventually folded under the pressure. SSG pitched a shutout, not unlike how I get shut out on Tinder every night. It was a strong performance from Ghost.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, you have access to my phone or something, Finch? I wouldn't make that public knowledge ever. It was a surprisingly strong performance from Ghost, but it wasn't enough to stop the Renegades from locking up the second seed. That's it, though, for Saturday.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You looking sound great today. Man, I could barely even get the words out. Sunday starts off with a matchup with similar weight to the first match on Saturday. Obey has nothing to win or lose here, but it's simple for Renegades. Win, and they're in for the playoffs. Competitive rulings come out for both of these teams, so the solo lane will be played by Roe for Renegades and Kassir in support with Inbound on ADC for Obey. Graham maybe said it best, just given the build of both teams coming into this set, it was Renegades to lose. And they did not. Now, if we move away from the wonky roster lineups and look at the play of the Renegades, it's got to be uplifting for Renegades fans after a 62-minute Game 3 loss last weekend to see their team play the cleanest set of the year. The game plan was clear. If Rogue can stay alive in solo, the long lane will be lopsided and the Renegades would capitalize easy. With that said, it's actually kind of the 408 that take the set over from the long lane. It's a dream scenario for Jake. He can play as aggressive as he likes and rarely would get punished for it. Speaking of aggressive, where is Aggro this weekend? Hardly noticed he was on vacation. Yeah, I remember things going really smoothly. I don't know. Maybe you don't even have to bring him back. At any rate, giving Jake props is not to say that in both games, Barracuda didn't pull his weight, because he sure did and then some. It's a slow Ronda Rousey chokehold with a few answers from Obey in Game 1, but a 23-minute game Game 2 would quickly put Obey down and end their phase. Lasper and Venenu both have awesome performances in Game 2 as well, infusing some confidence into the squad as playoffs loom over the horizon. All in all, it's a tough set to break down, but certainly can be summarized. Quick and easy for Renegades in both games, and that's it for this one.
Oh, that wasn't it for the week here in the SPL. One more, Sanguine versus Radiance, and what a set to end the split on, with Sanguine fighting for first place overall, crazy storyline, and Radiance fighting to get some end of the phase momentum. Initially, it looked like Radiance just weren't up to the task, as Sanguine were red hot to start off this set, but Radiance bounced back, and we ended up with an instant classic on our hands. Both teams will be in the playoffs no matter what, so we can only hope for an epic rematch moving forward. We don't often get to say this, but this may have come down to a support diff, and this is coming from Finch, who's the biggest Aurora stan. I knew he said aggro, Aurora stan around.
You would have lied
in
with
game
that.
one. In game one, we saw a completely different Sanguine, aggressively looking to make plays in the early game. They drafted a Helen Yamoja, tricked us all into thinking they were going to AFK for 40 minutes, but instead they held W all game, largely led by Rangyu. In Game 2, Sanguine's same proclivity for running it down hurts them when Radiance win a fight 3-0 around the FG. Aurora has a much better Game 2 with some clutch revives, and suddenly we're on to Game 3. The pace slows down considerably here, but it's Radiance who start to pull away. Sanguine, in the one game they didn't draft for Hyper late this set, go back to their roots and start to play the long game, slowly buying time to win one 51-minute team fight and win the game. So Sanguine are the first seed, and we got playoffs this weekend. Finch, that is week 10 here in the SPL. Lots of SMITE action to look forward to. That is week 10 in the SPL, as written by myself and Finch, and then as told by Finch and myself. And I just cannot wait to see how all of this plays out. So make sure to stay tuned for more SMITE action.